This is a Defy fridge side by side. This side is the freezer, that side is the fridge. The freezer has got its own compressor and its own operating system, and the fridge has got its own operating system. Fridge works with a thermostat, but the freezer is controlled through a PC board, a little microprocessor that sits behind this cover, which is this device here. It's got two sensors, and it's got a little plug that plug in here. This is what the PC board looks like. Now, with our power consumption in South Africa, these things go faulty. They're available, we can replace them, but they don't last. So I've got a way of making this self-defrosting system work without this board. These two sensors, the one sensor is mounted there you can see it. So the wire runs through the back, and the second sensor is mounted on the coil. We'll open the coil later. We leave those sensors in place to operate the little lights there. But the operating system I'm going to alter completely. Now if you have a look at this plug, there's 5 wires that plug into this board here. 2 of them, the blue and the brown, is just a power wire. All it does is it feeds 220 volts into this board. This board has got its own power supply that reduces the voltage for operating, and then it's got a relay which works the compressor and the defrost. Now the purple wire here is the defrost, the black wire is a compressor, and the gray wire is your fan wire. So basically there's 3 functions on here. One is the compressor, the fan, and the heater that gets switched on and off on intervals, which we're going to do with the timer, and I'll show you how I do it. There's 4 little self-tapping screws on top of this cover, and we just undo the self-tapping screws, all 4 of them. And then this cover will slide up to the top. So I've got 1 out, I've got 3 to go. Okay, once you've got the 4 screws out, this cover just slides out like that. But what I do is I just put one of the screws back into its hole, just like that, to keep the cover from falling down. Okay, this is the back of the fridge. The 2 sensor wires from your PC board enters into the fridge here, and the 5 wires that we spoke about runs down here, and in the factory they just tie it all together with a zip tie here. But this is your wires. Now from the top, your purple wire here was your defrost, which they connect onto the element which goes in there. The brown and blue was your power, which the blue comes from the top there, and then you got the rest of the wire. So what we'll do is we'll just slit this open so we can get a better look inside there. Okay, here we got all the wires. Blue and brown is your power. That black wire feeds your compressor, and this grey, you can see it goes straight onto the fan motor. So we're going to put a little defrost timer in this space here, and I'll show you how I connect it. Okay, I need a cable tie that holds. This is the place where we're going to connect the defrost timer. So what I do with the wire stripper, I strip it open a bit, and about a half an inch to the top of it, I strip it down. So we have a loose bit of plastic there, and then with a side cutter we remove that bit of plastic. So that it leaves us with a bit of copper exposed. Okay, when we have the copper exposed like that, wind these two up. So the blue wire, we didn't cut it off, we just exposed a little piece of copper. And then I have these little spade terminals which we connect on there. And the way I do it, I use this crimping tool by closing that up, turning the tool around, and then we just crimp it on there. And then it's got a second crimp in the back. And we get a terminal that's connected onto the blue wire like that. And that's where we're going to plug our timer in. Now the timer's got 4 connections. This is 1. So this is going to be a power because it's the blue. So the blue and brown is power. And then we still have to do the defrost, the compressor and the fan. And I'll do the rest of the terminals and then I'll show you how we connect it. Okay, now we've done the wires. I've done blue, black and brown. And there's just a single purple. That's the purple that goes to your defrost element. Now these wires they're going to be live while it works. So what I do is I slide a little piece of heat shrink over it. And then by applying a little bit of heat on it, they shrink like that to hide the exposed wire. So we just do the other 3 as well. Okay. All 4 of them. Put that one on. That's 4 nice connections. Now the defrost timer that I use is this type here, very basic. It's got 4 connections. 2 of the connections is the timer motor, number 3 and 1, and it's got 2 switches, number 2 and 4, which switch between 1, 2 will be your defrost, and 4 is your compressor. So defrost 2, compressor 4. Compressor is black. Okay, now this black wire goes down to the compressor, but now we're switching to the black wire that goes to the top again, and I'm going to use that for the fan motor. We're not going to use the gray wire for the fan from the PC board anymore. I'll show you what we do. So let's go to the front. Okay, this is the plug that comes out. So I remove the black wire and the purple and the gray from the board. So I'm left with blue and brown, which is your power 220, which I'm going to plug back in here to make these little light functions work. Like that, it's plugged in. And we're going to put both sensors back on again. So these lights will operate on the sensors, but the functions we're not going to do. Now this was the black wire that was from the PC board to the compressor, but we intercepted it in the middle and put a timer on. So this is what we're going to use for your fan motor, because your fan motor works through a switch. There's your fan motor. This is the switch. So what we do is we join the gray and the black together. So what that's going to do is we're going to feed power up the black, back down the gray, and your fan motor will work. So we join these two, and the purple wire, we just cancel it. It's never going to be used again. scissors. So these two, all we do is we wrap them together like this, and we'll insulate them with some tape. We'll plug the sensors in and move that back. Okay, so that purple wire, we're not worried about it. That just can lie here and that will stick inside. We'll connect the sensors up. Now if you come to the back, I'll just explain once more how the defrost is going to work. Okay, we have the brown and the blue, which is your power wires, which are going to feed the timer motor to make this timer turn. And then the blue wire, which is your common. So the common in the middle of these two contacts will either feed the black wire or the purple wire. Now the black wire is your compressor, goes up through the switch back to your fan, and the purple wire is your defrost. Now this timer, if you have a look at it, it says 6 hours 25 minutes. What that means is this timer will run for a 6-hour cycle to do 1 revolution, and during that revolution there will be a 25-minute defrost. Now the heating element, if it comes on for 25 minutes without ice, it's going to melt all the plastic. So what we do is we put a defrost termination switch in, and I'll show you how I do that. See, I've just switched it on, so if we push this switch, fan motor works. There's a fan turning, stop, by pushing the switch. So the fan works through the grey and black wire here. What I've done is I've made a little piece of plate which I've put 2 self-tappings in just to mount this timer, because this timer, this is where it's going to live. And this purple wire, this we're not going to use anymore, so I can just chop it off there. Purple wire, and we can take a zip tie and close all this up again, put the condenser back. So this is going to stay behind, and this is the defrost timer that's going to control the defrost. Okay, so the condenser has got 4 screws. Okay, the condenser is back. There's the timer now. It's behind the condenser, and that little red spindle will rotate while the timer works, and your electrical connections are there. So it's all behind it and nobody will know it's there. This is the defrost termination switch we use, which has got a little metal clip on it, and we can just clip it onto a pipe here. It can just live there. Now on this black wire for your defrost element, we just cut the wire, but I cut it in a place inside here. From the factory they put a micro temp in. That's a fuse that blows on temperature for, in case the system overheats for some reason, that will cut the power to the element. So we remove this, and what we do is we just replace it, 1 wire on there, 1 on there, through your defrost termination switch. We'll solder that and put some heat shrink on it. So once the heater, which is this part at the bottom, has defrosted all the ice and the heat gets here, it will switch the element off. Okay, what I've done is I've put a piece of heat shrink over the wire to your termination switch and one to the element which I've joined there. Piece of heat shrink to the second one. And then we're going to solder these 2 joints, and once we've soldered it, we'll slide the heat shrink over it. But we need to solder these joints. There has to be a proper connection. Okay, that one is done. There we go. The two connections are soldered. So we have a good connection. We slide the heat shrink over. And then we heat it up with a heat gun. Just like that, then we have a proper connection. And we do exactly the same on the other side. Okay, the two connections are done. The wires we can just run here. And they put these blocks of styrofoam in the coil here. They've actually got an important function. The fan motor draws air through this coil, and air always wants to take the shortest route. So we block that route off so that the air is forced to flow through the coil. And they had this piece of styrofoam there just to complete the airflow. Excess wire we can just stick in there. Maybe run this wire on top here. Okay, now before I put the cover back, I'm just going to run it, turn the timer manually onto defrost, and we'll see this element heat up. And when the heat reaches this termination switch, it switch off. And this little thermal cutout that I took out, I keep these, I use them in other fridges. Some of the Samsungs have one which is a very small value and they go faulty all the time, and this has got a higher value, so I replace it with these. Okay. Before we put this PC board back in position, there's three little lights here. The middle one is an alarm light. Now often these PC boards, when they fail, the lights flicker or something happens, or even sometimes if the lights is fine, when this heating element comes on defreeze, it will switch the alarm light on, and people get worried when they see a little red light lighting up. So what I do is I remove the PC board and I just remove the red light bulb from it. So even if it does get activated, it doesn't shine. This is an on-off which shines green. That will always shine green. And this is a fast freeze. By pushing this button, normally you bypass the thermostat function and the orange light will shine. And that one we can leave so that people can still push a button and see the orange light shine. But there's no function on this board that makes the fridge work. Okay. Once I've got it out. Okay, now there you can see the three light bulbs. Middle one is red and it says red there. So what we do is we just crack it. But be careful not to damage any of the circuitry around it. The side cutter I got is maybe a bit of an overkill. Now we've got our yellow, green, and where the red light bulb used to be, there's the two connections. So even if the red light wants to shine, it can't. So we just put the board back like this. Put the two screws back in again. And we replace the board. Okay, these are your two sensors. Those are the two sensors. And you plug back in, and then we have all these wires which we just bunch up behind the board. that's back in its place, and we can switch the fridge on now. Switch on, there should be a green light shining. Is it shining? And then by pushing this button, the orange light lights up. And by pushing it again, you switch it off. But none of these does any features, purely cosmetic. Okay. So before we close this cover, I'm going to run it for a couple of hours, get this coil nice and cold. And then from the back, I will turn on the defrost timer, put it on defrost cycle, and just watch the elements heat, melt the ice, and see the termination switch work. And then we can close this cover. And that's how I disconnect the operating system on these Defy fridges.